Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sake Revolution. This is America's very first sake podcast, and I am one of your hosts, and my name is John Puma from the Sake Notes. You may also know me as the administrator at the Internet Sake Discord, where we encourage people to come and join our little community and chat about sake together.
And I'm your host, Timothy Sullivan. I am a sake samurai, I'm a sake educator, as well as the founder of the Urban Sake website. And every week, John and I will be here tasting and chatting about all things sake and doing our best to make it fun and easy to understand. Mm-hmm. Hey, John, how you doing?
I am doing quite well. How about you? Good week so far?
Yeah, really good week. I'm ready for another fun sake episode, and we are going to be talking about sake vessels again. Another one of our series.
Yeah. So let me just go and grab my wine glass.
No, get back here.
Wait, but
no. Oh. Wait a minute, John. We do use a wine glass.
We do.
We recently did a sake vessels episode featuring the uber traditional sakazuki.
Yes.
Which was the ceremonial sake cup. But today we're going to keep it much more down to earth and much more real.
So there's going to be a little bit fewer weddings and yakuza.
There's less pomp and circumstance this episode.
Good to know.
Yeah, we are keeping it super basic. And this week we're going to talk about the all-purpose Ochoko. Now, I'm sure you've heard this term before, Ochoko, or Choco. The O is the honorific, so you can say Ochoko or you can say Choco if you're being a little more casual.
But we should respect the Choco, so yes. Ochoko.
Ochoko-san.
I've always, for me, it's always been, I've always focused my mind when I think of it, it's Ochoko. It's when I see the object, the name that pops into my head, Ochoko.
Yeah.
Now, for those at home who are not familiar, Timothy, what should people be on the lookout for when they're trying to find the Ochoko? How do they know what it is?
Well, Ochoko just means sake cup. It is the most general, all-purpose term you can use for sake cup.
Oh. Well, that was easy.
Yeah.
And I guess for the purposes of what people think of the Ochoko these days?
Yeah.
What are we dealing with?
Well, there's a few characteristics. There's no hard and fast rules, but there's a few characteristics that I believe would define what an Ochoko is versus any other type of sake cup. And the first one I really think is the most important, which is the size. But an Ochoko is generally a smaller size sake cup. And I would say probably two, maybe 3 ounces in size. Okay. So generally smaller. And the other thing I've noticed about Ochoko is that they're generally, I've often seen them as having like smooth sides. So there's some sake cups that are very earthenware and very rustic and almost look crinkled in texture. And Ochoko tend to be like smooth, small, very standard size sake cups. Very traditional and just what you would expect if you got a small sake cup in a restaurant.
Okay. All right. And what are they usually made out of? Like I get the impression from what we're both holding right now that like this is usually like a ceramic kind of thing.
Yeah, they're the most basic traditional ones are usually like a white porcelain or white ceramic. But they also make them, I've seen Ochoko made out of metal. I've seen them made out of glass and even sometimes made out of wood. So any small, smooth-sided 2 to 3 ounce sake cup could be considered an Ochoko. It's a general overarching term. And again, there's no real hard and fast definitions, but based on the general communal understanding, I'd say that's a pretty good working definition for what you might want to expect with that.
Okay. And so not as much pomp and circumstance as you pointed out, but when do you actually use the Ochoko traditionally?
We mentioned the size of the Ochoko. They're pretty small. So this is not something I use too much at home by myself, or I'd be refilling my cup
so
every
so
25
what you're saying
seconds.
Is at home, you like to serve yourself a large portion.
At home, I may, true confession time, I may lean towards a larger size sake cup. But when you're in a restaurant or you're having a sake experience with friends, the Ochoko is smaller. It must be refilled more often. And in Japan, we've talked about, in our sake etiquette episode, we talked about refilling other people's glasses and not refilling your own is a polite way to interact with people over sake. And these smaller Ochoko cups allow for that interaction because you have to constantly keep your eye on everyone else's cup, keep it filled. They'll refill your cup, and it gives you a chance to interact in that very Japanese way. So that's another reason that I believe that they tend to be a little bit smaller for the standard size.
And if you are not familiar with what Tim is talking about, you need to go back and find episode number 82 of Sake Revolution, the episode about sake etiquette, where we talk about all the gamesmanship around watching people's cups and making sure that they're never left wanting for sake. It was definitely a fun one. You should go back and check that out if you're not familiar with it.
You can never be too polite when it comes to sake.
That was the number one thing we came away from that episode with. I was like, well, you can always be a little bit more on top of the pouring of sake.
Now, we've talked about the sakazuki before, and we're talking about Ochoko today. Now, if you'd like an overview of all the major styles of sake cups, you can visit our website, sakerevolution.com. And we put together a cheat sheet for you of all the different sake cups. So if you want a visual of what we're talking about with the sakazuki versus an Ochoko versus all the other upcoming styles, check out the website and you can download the PDF for free.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned earlier that there's a number of materials, with the white porcelain being the most common. Have you ever seen these small Ochoko sake cups in other materials? Have you tried a glass one or a metal one or even a wooden one?
I think I used a wooden one once, maybe, but definitely I've had some glassware like that. Other types of porcelain and ceramic. In fact, when we were recently in Hawaii, you can go 2 episodes back to hear us talk a little bit about when John and Michelle were in Hawaii. We also picked up some sake cups, some Ochoko from the sake shop that were actually made by local Hawaiian artisans. And they were all very unique and very different. And they're really, really nice cups. And we enjoy using them all the time here. But as Tim pointed out earlier, at home, the Ochoko is a little bit small. So what we usually do is we'll pour the sake into a carafe and then pour it into our Ochoko from there.
That is a really fun way to drink sake at home too, is to have the carafe. So that's your larger portion that you're probably going to end up drinking. Mm-hmm. And then if you have a small cup, you just pour bit by bit as you enjoy your Netflix or whatever. And it is a wonderful way to enjoy sake at home. So in that way, Ochoko is a really, really practical way to drink. And if you have sake warmed or chilled, the smaller, 2-ounce cup is going to hold your sake at temperature better because it's a smaller size cup. That's another advantage of this Ochoko. That's why I think it's really safe to say that Ochoko is just your all-purpose, everyday, small Swiss Army knife sake cup. It is all-purpose and you can use it in almost any circumstance.
Nice. When you were mentioning other materials, you mentioned glass. Did I hear that right? Did you mention metal?
Yes.
Tell me more about the metal. I'm kind of interested in this.
Yes, there are Ochoko made out of metal. Sterling silver for very high-end fancy sake sets. But a more common metal is tin. So there is hammered tin and very skilled production of metal. And in Niigata, there's a very famous region that does stainless steel production. And they make very beautiful metal ochoko that are crafted out of stainless steel. So basically all kinds of metals that are good for drinking out of. You can find ochoko in all of these metals. And the one thing I love about drinking out of a metal ochoko, like a stainless steel one, is that it really maintains the cold. So if you pour a chilled sake into a stainless steel ochoko, it really maintains the cold, and you can feel it with your hands, and it chills the cup. So pre-chilling those metal cups and drinking cold sake out of it in the summer is the best.
That sounds really nice. Well, summer is coming.
Yes.
And I need to get a metal ochoko.
You do. And the glass ones are fabulous too, because you can see through them, and sometimes they have different colored glass and you can see a different design through it. But if you like looking at the color of your sake, and using clear glass ochoko is beautiful. And again, the clear glass and the metal, I would say, are more for chilled sake, and the porcelain, earthenware, and ceramic are really good for chilled or for warm sake. They do a great job of insulating and keeping sake warm.
So, Tim, we're going to be pouring some sake into our ochokos, and also, the tried and true wine glass. And we're going to do a little compare and contrast about the experience. And this week's sake is Sekiya Horaisen. And this is a Junmai Daiginjo from Sekiya Jozo in Aichi. Tim, I don't think we've represented Aichi very often on the show. Have we?
Aichi power. It's about time.
The classification on this, of course, is a Junmai Daiginjo. The Seimai Buai, that rice milling percentage, is down to 40%, so solid Junmai Daiginjo territory.
I can feel the luxury.
Yes. The alcohol percentage is 15 even, and I don't see the rice type, unfortunately.
Yeah, I scoured the interwebs, and the acidity, the SMV, and the rice type are NA, so they are not announced by the brewery.
That happens. That does happen.
It does happen, but something tells me we're still going to enjoy it.
I think I have that same thought.
Yeah, so Horaisen brand is really well known in Aichi, and the Sekiya brewery is known for making very delicious small batch brewed sake. So I'm super excited to try this one. And this brewery was founded in 1864.
All right, 1864. They've been doing this for a while then. Like many Japanese breweries, they've been doing this for quite a bit. Love it. So we're gonna pour this in both our wine glass and in our ochoko, and we'll get right down to it. This will be the wine glass smackdown.
Yes, just like we did with our sakazuki. We've got now. I have an ochoko that fits the parameters that I described. It's about a 3-ounce ochoko. It's white ceramic. It is the most basic form. So, and you also have a white ceramic ochoko as well, right?
I do.
All right. So I've got the Horaisen Junmai Daiginjo Ku, and we're going to get this open and into our glass. Let's go.
Let's do it.
All right. Let's start with the ochoko first.
Sure.
I think it only makes sense. The
Sounds
ochoko is the guest. The ochoko is the guest on this episode.
It is. It really is. And the challenger gets introduced first, right?
Yep. Okay. So we're both drinking out of white porcelain ochoko, and I have to say, it gives me an excellent view of this sake.
It does.
Looking into the white, it's like looking at a wine glass against a bright white tablecloth. It gives you the perfect view of the sake color. And the color here coming through for me is exceedingly clear and transparent.
Yeah. Typically when we're doing this show, and even if I'm just at home and I pour some sake into a glass, I usually hold the glass up to my monitor and compare it to like a white background of a document or something like that. And I try to get the weight from there. But with the Ochoko, I can look down straight into it and you really get a great feel for how clear it is against that stark white background.
Absolutely. Now I filled mine about 3/4 full, but this is a little bit giving me flashbacks to our Sakazuki episode where I have to keep an eye on it. If I wiggle too much, if my hand wobbles a little bit too much, I might have a little spill. So I do have to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. But I don't think the situation is as dire as it was. I feel like a nice breeze might have knocked sake out of the Suzuki. This, I feel like, you a steady hand, you're going to be okay.
Yes. One steady hand. I'm just making a note. It's not, my attention is a little bit focused on the Ochoko. Okay, let's give it a smell from the Ochoko.
Tim, talk to me about this aroma.
Well, out of the Ochoko, it's very gentle and very soft.
Gentle, soft, fruity.
I'm getting an aroma of pear. I smell a little bit of pear or green apple and maybe a hint of something steamed ricey in the background, but very soft, very gentle, quiet.
Yeah.
And this is the experience with the Ochoko. And there's more surface area closer to the mouth of the cup. And a lot of the volatile aroma compounds that are coming off the surface here escape more easily into the air. So we're not getting the concentration of aroma. So it dissipates a little bit more, but it's still really enjoyable. What do you think, John?
I agree. It is definitely present. I have a hard time really capturing it because I have a few moments to think about it and then it's gone. Also, we can't agitate it in this vessel very well. And so one thing we like to do in our wine glasses is swirl it around, and that releases that aroma. Can't really do that. I don't care how steady your hand is, Tim. You're going to have a mess if you do that with your Ochoko. Yes.
I don't think the Ochoko was designed with swirling in mind.
No, I don't.
Not at all.
So. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's take a sip out of our Ochoko, this Junmai Daiginjo.
Let's give this. It may not have been designed for swirling, but it seems to be perfectly fine for sipping, Tim.
Yes. It's just lovely. The sake hits your palate at a great angle and spreads across the palate. I'm getting a little bit of creaminess and just a hint of soft rice on the palate. It's not as fruity as the aroma. What are you getting?
Yeah, the aroma led me to believe that we were going to be getting something a little bit more fruit forward.
Right.
But this is something that we've spoken about before with these daiginjos that have a more rice forward profile. It's like a sweet rice. Like it's
like
a
rice
little
pudding.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. That's great. Yes, actually. I'm a big fan of rice puddings. That puts a smile on my face also. And it just makes that connection as soon as you said the words. I was like, oh, fantastic. Yes. But with a little bit more fruit to it and very nice, very different. I will say that, and very tasty. But the aroma did lead me down a different path, I thought.
So we don't have an SMV number. So you and I are both tasting this blind in that regard. Do you think there's a good balance between sweet and dry here?
Yes, I do think it is. It is nice and balanced. It is, none of the factors are really bowling me over and stopping me from appreciating the rest of it. I'm getting to enjoy everything about this sake, a little bit separately. There's a nice little nuance to everything I'm sipping here.
Yeah, it's really cohesive. I find the sweetness comes forward a little bit more in the front. Like when you first sip it, you get that rice pudding, gentle fruitiness, and then the finish kind of comes as a wave of dryness for me.
Yes.
So I would be super curious to know what the official SMV number is, but we don't in this case.
Yeah.
In any case, I find that it's really balanced and cohesive, just like you described.
Now, let's move over to the wine glass and see what happens. Now, this vessel was made for swirling.
I'm already swirling.
Oh, here we go.
I'm way ahead of you. So I have this poured into my standard kind of mid-size stemmed wine glass, giving it a swirl. Now let's give it a smell.
There's a lot more truth in this aroma out of the wine glass, I think.
Please elaborate.
Because I'm getting a lot more of the rice.
Ah, okay.
I thought when I was sniffing it out of the Ochoko, I was really getting the fruit and I missed a lot of the rice. So the rice flavor, when it hit me and I was sipping, was a little bit of a surprise. In this case, with the aroma, the rice is right there in the mix with everything else. And I suspect that when we sip it, it's going to be a much more cohesive experience going from the nose to the taste. What do you think?
Yeah. Thinking back to the Sakazuki, that saucer-like shape that we had, that was almost impossible to get any aroma. And then this one is a little bit more of a bowl shape, and we got some of the aroma. But both of these compared to the wine glass just channels that aroma right to your nose. And with a swirl, it is still hard to beat.
Yeah.
All right, let's give it a taste from the wine glass.
Let's have a sip.
Yes.
Interesting for me in this one, the rice, while more prominent on the nose, a little less prominent on the palate. And maybe that's because of the whole thing with the nose and, it's not a surprise anymore.
Yeah. For me, the wine glass experience feels more like the sake is hitting the center of my palate quickly. And from the Ochoko, it felt like it spread more across my palate. Like the amount of sake coming in at one time from the Ochoko was spreading and I think muting the flavor a little bit and softening it. And from the wine glass, it flows in more quickly and hits the center of my palate very quickly. And it feels like I'm getting more of a burst of flavor. Does that make sense to you?
I think so. And that explains a little bit of some of the experience that I'm having. I sometimes I know what I'm experiencing. I don't know always the why.
I would say that the aroma I enjoyed more from the wine glass, but the flavor I actually enjoyed more from the Ochoko. Because it was softer and it was more gentle and it was less kind of abrupt for me. So I really liked the slow roll of the flavors from the Ochoko.
Interesting. And I understand, but I think for my personal style, I kind of like it a little bit more from the wine glass because, well, honestly, I tend to go with fruit over rice, and I'm getting more fruit from my experience when I taste it out of the wine glass.
All right. Yeah. Now we've chosen Junmai Daiginjo to taste today. What do you think would happen if we had like a Honjozo style sake in the same comparison? What do you think?
Well, I think that it would probably be a lot more friendly to the Ochoko.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of very aromatic Honjozos out there. But I think that when we talk about Honjozo, we're not talking about aromatic sakes. So yeah, I do think the Ochoko will do us some favors, and it'll be much more comfortable in that glassware.
So there is a place for Ochokos, I think, with all different grades of sake. But the one that may be a little bit more appropriate for serving with an Ochoko may be a bit more earthy Junmai or Honjozo style. That might be a good recommendation for listeners, don't you think?
Yeah. I think that if there's going to be softness on the aroma and a lot of fruit, something of a big bouquet, your prototypical Ginjo sake, you're probably going to experience those aspects of the sake more out of a wine glass.
Yeah. I think one way to say this, I think, is if you want to study the aroma, then a wine glass is your friend.
I like that. I like that.
Whether you're in a restaurant or at home. But if you're just enjoying the sake as a whole, and you're not there to necessarily study it or observe it at a deeper level, I really enjoyed drinking this Chunmai Daiginjo out of an Ochoko. I'm not mad about this at all. I think it's really fun to try different vessels and different types of cups. And I am a big proponent of being flexible and trying different combinations of sakes and vessels.
One thing I really like is that, once again, we're kind of having another experience where the glassware does have a big influence. And we're learning that the vessel that you drink your sake out of is another level of your sake drinking experience, another thing that you can play with and see what happens. You already have different styles, you have different temperatures, and now different glassware, and you can have a whole range of different flavors from your sake.
Some of the very best sake forward restaurants I've visited in the past, that means restaurants that focus on their sake list or specialize in sake, they have a wide variety of cups and glassware and carafes. And based on their knowledge of the style of sake, they will serve you out of a certain type of glassware that they recommend for that. And that level of service is really amazing. And when I was first tasting sake and I went to these restaurants that really focus on sake, I was like, oh, why did you pick this glass or that glass? And they would explain to me like, oh, well, this is more earthy, less aromatic, so blah, blah, blah. And it's really fun to learn about.
Who knew you can drink sake out of so many different types of vessels?
We're going to have another sake vessel episode coming up soon, so stay tuned and we hope you enjoy. Thanks so much for all of our listeners for tuning in. John, as always, it was great to taste with you. I want to send out a special shout out to all of our patrons who support us on patreon.com/sakerevolution.
And by the way, if you want to learn more about our antics and keep up with what we're up to, please check us out on social media. We're all the big ones. No TikTok yet, Tim.
No comment. No TikTok just yet. But it's maybe coming soon. Who knows? But Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of our favorite social media platforms. So come around, check us out. So until next time, please grab your Ochoko. Remember to keep drinking sake and kanpai.